Welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber CCISO Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. Virtualization is now a core technology in enterprise IT. It powers data centers, development environments, disaster recovery platforms, and private clouds. By allowing multiple virtual machines to run on a single physical host, virtualization improves resource efficiency, scalability, and high availability. However, it also introduces unique security risks and operational complexities. These include hypervisor-level attacks, misconfigured virtual networks, unmanaged virtual machine sprawl, and gaps in isolation between guest systems. Virtualized infrastructure can affect the organization's compliance posture if controls are not properly extended. For these reasons, virtualization security is no longer a specialized concern. It is a fundamental component of enterprise cybersecurity governance. The CISO must treat virtual platforms as part of the core attack surface and ensure that appropriate safeguards are in place throughout the virtual environment. The CISO plays a central role in the governance and oversight of virtualization security. This includes setting policies and security requirements for all layers of the virtual stack, starting from the hypervisor and extending to guest operating systems, virtual networks, and management consoles. The CISO must work closely with infrastructure teams, DevOps engineers, and cloud architects to ensure that virtualization platforms are configured securely and monitored continuously. Segmentation policies, access controls, and detection mechanisms must be enforced across virtual machines, hosts, and management planes. Audits, patching programs, and vulnerability management routines must include hypervisors and virtual workloads. Finally, the CISO ensures that virtualization risk is not addressed in isolation. It must be embedded within broader GRC frameworks to ensure visibility, accountability, and compliance alignment. Understanding the components of virtualization is essential to managing its risk. Hypervisors serve as the foundation for virtual machine execution. Type 1 hypervisors run directly on hardware and are used in enterprise environments for performance and isolation. Type 2 hypervisors operate on top of host operating systems and are common in desktop or development environments. Guest VMs are encapsulated operating systems that share the underlying hypervisor. Virtual switches and software-defined networks connect VMs internally and to external networks. Management tools, such as VMware vCenter or Microsoft SCVMM, control provisioning, configuration, and maintenance of virtual resources. These consoles are high-value targets due to their broad control. Key risks in virtualization include VM escape, where a malicious actor breaks isolation and accesses the host or peer VMs, insecure templates that propagate vulnerabilities, resource contention leading to denial of service, and privilege abuse through overly permissive access. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Securing the hypervisor and host system is a high priority. Hypervisors must be hardened according to vendor guidelines and industry benchmarks. The operating system on which the hypervisor runs must be kept minimal, patched regularly, and restricted from unnecessary access. Administrative access to the hypervisor and management interfaces must be tightly controlled using multi-factor authentication and role-based access control. Activity through management consoles should be logged, monitored, and limited to authorized sessions. Timely patching of hypervisors is critical to closing privilege escalation vulnerabilities that could allow compromise of the entire virtual environment. The CISO must ensure that configuration audits are performed regularly to detect drift, non-compliance, or unauthorized changes in isolation policies. Virtual machines themselves must follow secure configuration practices. Using standardized templates, often referred to as gold images, ensures that each VM starts with a known security baseline. These templates should be patched, scanned, and validated before deployment. Communication between VMs should be limited to what is necessary for operations. Excessive lateral movement pathways increase exposure. VMs should have host-based firewalls, antivirus, and endpoint protection agents to support monitoring and containment. Administrators must control the creation, cloning, and resource allocation of VMs to prevent abuse or denial of service. The CISO must monitor VM lifecycle activities and enforce governance over provisioning, modification, and retirement. And virtual network segmentation is essential to managing communication and exposure. Management traffic, production data, and development activity must be separated through virtual LANs or software-defined network policies. Firewalls and access control rules must apply not only at the perimeter but also within the east-west traffic paths between VMs. NAC policies and identity-aware filtering help enforce access rights across segments. Misconfigurations in virtual switches can expose sensitive systems or allow unauthorized communication between tenants. Monitoring tools must be configured to observe internal VM traffic as well as north-south ingress and egress points. The CISO must validate that segmentation strategies are enforced and that monitoring is capable of detecting lateral movement within virtual environments. Access control and virtualization must follow the principle of least privilege. Hypervisor access, VM console access, and management tool access must all be granted based on role and function. Integration with directory services allows for centralized authentication and auditing. Privileged sessions should be monitored and recorded for review. Credential hygiene, including regular rotation and strong password enforcement, is critical to prevent misuse. Service accounts and administrative roles must be reviewed periodically to avoid sprawl or misuse. The CISO ensures that access rights are defined, documented, and governed through formal processes, including periodic audits and segregation of duties where applicable. Effective logging and monitoring are necessary for visibility and control. Logs must be collected from hypervisors, guest systems, virtual switches, and management consoles. These logs should be fed into a SIEM platform and correlated with physical, cloud, and endpoint telemetry. Suspicious activity, such as unauthorized VM provisioning, rapid snapshot creation, or repeated access failures, should generate alerts. Monitoring systems must be configured to detect indicators of rogue VM creation, resource abuse, or escape attempts. Regular reviews of configuration changes, backup failures, and privilege escalation attempts are essential. The CISO must ensure that logging is enabled, data retention policies are followed, and alerting thresholds are tuned to reduce noise and improve response. Compliance and governance responsibilities extend to all virtual systems. Virtual infrastructure must meet the same regulatory standards that apply to physical environments. PCI DSS, HIPAA, ISO 27001, and other frameworks require documentation of access controls, audit logging, patching, and data protection. The organization must be able to demonstrate that VMs are patched regularly, backed up properly, and included in vulnerability management scans. Virtual firewalls and segmentation rules must be mapped to control objectives and included in audit scope. Change control procedures must include configuration updates to hypervisors, network policies, and VM templates. The CISO ensures that virtual environments are fully integrated into GRC programs and that audit readiness includes all components of the virtual stack. On the CCISO exam, candidates can expect to see questions related to virtualization terminology, configuration risks, and executive-level oversight. Terms such as hypervisor, VM escape, VLAN, snapshot, and management plane are essential to understand. Scenario-based questions may involve misconfigured segmentation, unauthorized VM creation, or gaps in hypervisor patching. The CISO's role includes governance of virtual infrastructure, oversight of access controls, enforcement of policy, and integration with compliance frameworks. Virtualization security also intersects with cloud, endpoint, and network security programs, making it a critical area of cross-domain understanding for certification success. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cyber CISO Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com.